Hi everyone, and welcome to our live webinar on improved workflows with Terraform 0.13. And we are really happy and thankful to you all for taking your time to join us today. Terraform 0.13 takes a definitive step in simplifying usability and collaboration. The latest release features notable improvements to module-centric workflows, custom variable validation, as well as improvements to community-provided installation and discovery. In this webinar, we will unpack how these changes can meaningfully impact your deployments and see a live demonstration of Terraform's enhanced workflows. The last 30 minutes will be a live panel Q&A to finish the live stream. And just quickly, we'll run through a few housekeeping items before we begin. So joining me today are Kyle and Michelle, who both sit on the product marketing team for Terraform. And Kyle will be the one leading our presentation and demo. Also, and there's Michelle. Hi. Also, just to let you know, this webinar is recorded and the recording will be made available after post-processing, usually within a day or two, so you all can look out and expect an email from me in the near future. We'll be sending out a poll at the end of the webinar, so we do ask that you please just help us out by taking a few quick minutes to answer. It'll be under 2 minutes. And lastly, feel free to put questions in the question box as we go through the presentation, and we will answer them at the Q&A towards the end. And with that, we will go ahead and jump in with Kyle to kick us off.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Welcome everybody to this session where we're going to be talking about some of the improved workflows with Terraform 0.13. Huge shout out to everybody that's already been extremely active in the comments. This community is amazing. Love working with Terraform and its community. All right, so let's talk about what, or rather, who the people are that are here. Kitty already gave a brief overview about, my name is Kyle Ruddy. I do technical marketing. We also have Michelle Greer and Petros who are going to be helping out with the Q&A. Michelle is part of our product marketing group, and Petros is part of our product management group. However, we also have a special guest that's joining us, Martin Atkins, one of the engineers for Terraform itself, has also joined us. So we are ready for any type of question that you have for us. All right, so let's dive into what we're here to really talk about today. We're going over all of the new features for 0.13. So we're talking new module arguments, some of the provider improvements, a little bit of integration pieces for usage with Terraform Cloud, and then I have a whole bunch of demos to go through, followed by a nice panel at the end where we'll handle all the questions that came in. All right, so let's go. Terraform 0.1, kind of taking a brief look into the past here, where we've been to kind of establish where we're going. 0.11 brought some of the niceties to Terraform itself. This is where Terraform Apply really became a little more streamlined, and really just the workflow in general was a whole lot easier to use. Then a little while later, we got to Terraform 0.12. Now this was a massive rewrite. This was the bringing about of HCL2, or HashiCorp Configuration Language 2. So it brought a lot of some expression syntaxes like for eaches and depends on and things of that nature. But it was a big endeavor to move from 0.11 to 0.12. And now we're talking about 0.13. And this is really just a stabilization of a lot of those things that came in 0.12. So let's get into some of the module arguments and some of the improvements that have come from that aspect. So the first one I want to talk about is the module argument of count. This is something that came in through a lot of the GitHub repository issues and comments and through Discuss. We heard you. We know that was something that you could do amongst some of the other structures within Terraform itself. However, module was an area that was lacking the count capability. So that is something that has been introduced or is being introduced with 0.13. And I've got some demos to really show, kind of the power of what happens with count. Just being able to deploy multiple resources without having to declare each one of those individually. Then from what we do with count, we can kind of build on top of that with for each, that is two, again, at the module level. But this allows us to add in a little more intelligence, being able to declare multiple things as part of our resource creation through the usage of that module. When it comes down to it, this is all about being able to more easily maintain some of our larger code bases throughout what everybody's using in their environments today to define their infrastructure. Then we have depends on. Depends on is an interesting one to me because I think Terraform gracefully handles a lot of the dependency issues when it comes to resource creation and definition. However, there have been some areas where it doesn't quite cover everything. And this was, again, something that came up through some of the GitHub repositories and some of the discussed channels as something that was greatly needed. So again, huge shout out to everybody who was going through and giving us that feedback to really allow us to know what everybody in the community was asking for. So depends on is a brand new thing for modules. Now let's get into some of the provider handling. This was something that was kind of released as, the declaration was released as part of 0.11, and then we've really kind of improved and built upon it from there, even doing some enhancements to the Terraform registry itself. So this is really just the ability to streamline the definition of what providers that you're referencing and using. So over here on the right-hand side of the screen, we have three different options. So on the top level, these are the HashiCorp specific, the ones that we have released as part of the Terraform registry. However, due to some enhancements to the Terraform registry, we have also added things such as partner-based providers. So in our example here, we're using private.org's provider for Best Cloud. And then down there at the bottom, we're making use of a provider from Sakura Cloud that actually, I'm sorry, the middle one was a community provider. Apologies for that. The bottom one is one from one of our partners. So now we can even incorporate all of these things into the Terraform registry to more easily define and kind of avoid some of those collision chances that are there. The other part that I want to call out here is that as part of each one of these areas, this is part of the required providers. So we're calling out what provider we want, what the name is, and then where that source is actually located. So be aware of those as you're working through here. So then we have some Terraform Cloud integration pieces that have been added in. Now, Terraform Login isn't something that's exactly new. This was something that was introduced as part of 0.12. However, this is the first major release that this has been readily made available for. I've got a demo of this. Briefly, type in Terraform Login, it takes you directly out to Terraform Cloud, which is really one of the easiest places to manage your remote state, as well as manage some of the users and who has access as part of your teams for your infrastructure code that you're using, where you can manage that. You can also run some of your Terraform operations from Terraform Cloud as well, freeing up resources locally. But Terraform Login just very simply allows you to log into Terraform Cloud extremely easily without any real difficulty to streamline that process. And then I do have one more thing that kind of snuck in here towards the end of the 0.13 release cycle, and that's variable validation. Now, this is something that was kind of introduced as an experimental feature as part of 0.12. However, this is also one of those things that is being taken out of the experimental classification and being released as part of this major release. Now, for those of you who don't know exactly what custom variable validation is, this just means that we can take and apply conditions that we would like our variable inputs to satisfy in order to be used amongst our Terraform operations. So our example right here is saying that we have a variable that's going to be a string type. We want it to be at least a length of 4 characters, and then we want it to start with AMI dash. And if it doesn't satisfy those criteria, we also have a really nice error message that we can populate to let those that are running these Terraform operations know exactly what happened or exactly why this particular variable failed. All right, so let's get into some demos and cover really what's coming in 0.13. All right, so I'm jumping into Visual Studio Code. That's what I'm going to be using for our demonstrations in this session. Let me, oh, my terminal screen doesn't want to disappear. Oh, there it goes. All right, helps when you use the right shortcut. Okay, so for our first demonstration, we're going to be taking a look at the usage of count. So very basically, we have our Terraform configuration that's defined here at the top. We're going to be using Terraform Cloud to not only store our state, but also that's going to be where this particular set of Terraform operations are being ran. We're going to be making use of the AWS provider, pulling that directly from HashiCorp's Terraform Registry, from one of the providers that we've created and released. Then from that point, we're doing just some very basic stuff here. So we're calling out our provider, giving it an alias so that we can use it in a private module that I've created. So the output of this is just going to be creating a S3 bucket. So let me expand out my terminal session here. Doesn't look like my directory has been initialized, so doing a quick Terraform init will bring down all of those resources for me, and I'm just going to go ahead and dive right into a Terraform apply, and I'm going to, oh, what did I do? Helps if I spell it right. 1 second. There we go. All right, so what this is doing is just taking that configuration that I was just showing you, sending it out to Terraform Cloud, where it's going to process and run that. We will be able to see the entire plan and apply process roll through here on our local terminal. There we go. So we're just creating 2 different resources. One is going to be creating a randomized name using random pet. And then from that point, we're going to ingest that random pet name and include that as part of the name for a bucket, an S3 bucket. So once this finishes up processing, there we go. So we have we can see here that we have an ID of current Panther. Terraform webinar current Panther is our bucket name. However, this is a count demo. So what happens if we need more than just one singular S3 bucket? So in prior versions, we would have to define or use this module several different times to get that output that we need. But here we can just do input count. Let's create 5. So just count parameter 5. We'll go ahead and save our file there through some usage of some Git integrations. We'll just updating module to use count parameter. And we will commit our change. Send that out to GitHub. Bring back our terminal session here. And being able to go ahead and run Terraform apply again. This time, instead of just seeing the 2 items that we want to create, we should see 10 items. And while this is running, I should call out that we are using Terraform 0.13 release candidate 1. This is out there and available for everybody to start using and consuming. and letting us know any feedback that you're running into, anything that you would like to see improved upon, anything that you'd like to see added. All right, so there we go. The outcome of our plan. We have 10 new things to add, and it's going to remove our current Panther prior S3 bucket. So as some of the output here, we can see that we have our Terraform webinar buckets over here. And then we have Warm Ladybird, Viable Goldfish, Winning Wildcat, Pro Swift, and Exotic Lizard. So just like that, we've gone and been able to streamline how we use count to really just simplify our code and in the way that we create resources. All right, so let's kind of build on top of that. So we'll move from our count demo over to our for each demo. This is going to look very similar. However, instead of just passing in a count property, top end pieces are all exactly the same as it was on the last demo. We are also going to include a section here for a variable of environment type. Here we're feeding in dev, QA, and prod for our different environment types. And from that point, it's going to do a for each loop for each one of those environment types and create an S3 bucket, still continuing to use that private module that I've created and stored within our Terraform Cloud environment that has some of our environment best practices already associated to it. So let's go back to our terminal session here. I'm going to clear our screen, change over to our demo environment here. Does not look like I've initialized it yet. So there's that. And to avoid any typos again, I'll just tab up into our Terraform apply and auto approve. So it takes just a second to get some of that information back. But here we can see that it's going to plan to create 6 different resources that are based upon that. And we can even see part of that, the output here. So we can see an S3 bucket QA being created right there as this is working through the process. Oh, bucket already, previous name. I already own it. What did I do? Oh, maybe I have an environment that's out there that that was not destroyed properly. Apologies for that. Sorry, let's try that again. That's what happens when you don't clean up your demo environment. All right, but so just similarly to the last one, we can see, bucket now instead of QA, it's bucket 013. And it should be the same for 012 and 011. Going through the history of some of our prior Terraform releases. So there, now it's happy. Now that I've chosen names that don't conflict with things that are already out there in existence, we can see that we now have 3 new buckets that have been out there and created. So a little bit of nicety, being able to inject some of that logic through for each to kind of build upon that to again streamline our code in the way that it operates, instead of having to separate that out into a slew of different resources and variable declarations. Okay, so let's move on to our next one. The next one is a little more difficult to try and demonstrate. So I'm going to try it. There's no time like being live to try and go through some demonstrations that you never quite know will work or not. So this was actually a demo that was created by one of our internal folks by the name of Roger. He has a fantastic blog that's out there. There's a couple different areas where this demo is out there, and this is where we're trying to illustrate how depends on really works. So what's happening here is we have a concept of trying to write the output of 3 files specifically for fruit that are going to be our examples here. The important part here is for this section, this is we're using the read files complicated and the read files or write files complicated modules. Now the important part here is to look at our read files module, and what we're doing here is we have these 3 files, one being apple, another being banana, another one being orange, and for each one of these files we have to go through and create our depends on in order for this to operate properly. So let's go back to here. Let's bring up our terminal session again. Let me clear out my screen and change to our appropriate. All right. So we're going to pull down our providers here. So we've got that. Let me clear out the screen again. And run through our plan and apply. So here we have some outputs here. We have apple, banana, and orange. So we're not only creating our files, which if I do an ls here, list out some of those, we can see that we have, where is my cursor? We can see that we have apple and banana and then orange down here at the bottom. And we also have the outputs from those that are up here listed as part of the fruit that's ingesting those file names. So let me clear out of here. Let me show you how depends on would work now with 0.13. So let me go back to our GitHub repository over here. Let me check out to our 3rd demo branch here. Let me condense that. So the big difference here is that we are going to a more simplified write files and read files modules. So basically these don't have any of those depends on within the data structures themselves. So instead we are able to move that out here to being a top level depends on within just the root module itself here. So let's bring up our terminal session again here. Let me actually remove those text files real quick. All right. And run our apply again. So here it even runs a little bit faster, but we can see the output here is the same. So we still have apple, banana, orange. And if we do an ls here, we can see that we have, oh, why are you doing that? We have our apple and banana, and we have our orange. So that was a pretty simple demonstration to show something that is a huge deal to solve some fairly complex problems. So, for those of you that have ran into some depends on issues, hopefully this is going to help you out quite a bit. All right, then for one of our last demos here, actually I have 2 more demos. So here we are working on variable validation. So this is going to look exactly the same as our original first 2 demonstrations. Still going to try and create some S3 buckets. However, we have some validation here. So we have a condition that says, hey, for our AWS region variable input, we would like that to equal just 9 characters. So, for those of you that have used AWS, this is certainly not limited to AWS, but for the sake of these examples, this would be similar to like US-West-2. Um, and then even more so, the follow-up here is that we are looking at our first three characters, and we are verifying that our variable input starts with US and a dash. So we want to basically restrict this only to those US-based region codes. And we can even put that in as part of our error messages as well. So we have a very detailed error message of the AWS region value must be a valid US-based region code starting with US dash. So let's bring up our terminal again here. Clear that out and switch over to our initialize those providers real quick. There we go. And then for the sake of this one, we can just do a Terraform plan. We don't need to run through the entire process. And there we go. So we have our error that's down here saying, we have an invalid value for a variable. And we see our nicely coded error message that can give us all kinds of details about what that validation was really meant to do. And you can do all kinds of things. You can even get a little crazy and get into regex based variable validation. It's pretty much up to you and your call as to how granular you want your own variable validation to be. All right, so last thing I want to show off here is the Terraform login process, because I think this is very nice, very streamlined. You type in Terraform login, and it's basically going to be like, hey, we're going to pop up a Terraform Cloud instance, and we're going to let you log in, and we're going to take care of all of these pieces that goes through the workflow of creating an API token, and we'll store it locally for you to use. So, it popped me open to onto one of my other terminals here. Let me, the joys of live demos. Oops. So it's popped me into my Terraform Cloud instance, and it's saying, hey, we saw that you've logged in and you want to create an API token. You assign it a nice little description so that you know what it is in case you need to go back and figure that out. So we'll type in something interesting like 0.13 webinar login token. Then it's going to feed on our API token, which I'm not going to leave on the screen for very long. So then we can see that has been created. It is stored locally on my system. So all of those prior workflows, those operations, really streamlined. And I'm going to just go ahead and delete it. I'm not saying I don't trust you all, but just in case. And actually, while I'm out there, let's take a look at the Terraform registry for 1 second here. Just to kind of show you some of the improvements and the updates that have been going on out here. Because we have made some tremendous improvements, and this is kind of what that the required provider that block is kind of all about. So the one that we were using in our demonstrations today, we can see here if we want to use this AWS provider, this is the Terraform code block that we can use to declare that within 0.13. Now, there are also some really cool providers that are out there that are not directly from us. So we can take a look at some of the community providers, which the community has been fantastic in terms of creating all these different providers and releasing them out into the wild. I'm looking for where did our here. Let's use Paul's Unify um, provider. So here, if we wanted to use this within our own Terraform configuration, we can just say, use provider, and it's going to pull up and tell us, here's how we define the usage of Unify within 0.13. And then, of course, we can go back and say, what if we want to do, oops, some of the partners that are out there. Um, so we can use any of these as well. New Relic is just one that I'll click on. Very similarly to all of the rest of them. Being able to define your source and exactly which provider that you want to use directly in your Terraform HCL code itself. So it's super convenient and very easy to make use of there. All right, so let's talk some additional resources and some things that you want to follow up on. As I mentioned earlier, the release candidate, the first release candidate of 0.13 has been released. It is out there. I believe it was released either last Tuesday or last Wednesday. So you can go grab that. That's exactly what I was using in all of the demonstrations that you were just able to see. And we have a full release of the GA of 0.13. We're targeting early August. So, fingers crossed very soon. But in the meantime, you can also check out some of the feature blogs. So just heading out to hashicorp.com/blog. And there are a ton of blogs that have been created by some of our product managers, some of our engineers, and some of the other folks about all of those new features. So, you can get a little more more granular in terms of what all is included in those pieces. Now, just yesterday, our Learn team has released a bunch of new Learn guides for some of these 0.13 features, for each and count, and I believe Depends-On might even be out there as well. So definitely head out to HashiCorp, the learn.hashicorp.com site, and check out some of those brand new guides, fantastic walkthroughs. And then as you're going through and planning your upgrade from 0.12 to 0.13, we also have a draft version of the upgrade guide that is available on GitHub. So definitely check all of those things out as we get ramped up for the GA launch in early August. So with that, let's get into some Q&A. My little Zoom taskbar has been jumping the entire time, so I'm really excited to see what all has come in so far.
Hi everyone, really quickly before we dive into the Q&A, just wanted to let you guys know that we are officially launching our poll now. So if you guys can take 2 minutes at some point or even one just to quickly answer, and I'll turn it over to Michelle and Kyle to lead you through the Q&A. Thank you guys.
Hello. Thanks for joining. Tons of questions, and I apologize if we can't get to yours. I would like to share. Petros, who's the PM for Terraform Open Source, has a Twitter handle which is Degalace, which is DEGALACE. And if you want to ask some questions there, he does take questions on Twitter. But we would like to go ahead and start with our live Q&A now. So our first question is the average migration from Terraform 0.12 to 0.13 expected to be easier or more difficult than the migration from 0.11 to 0.12?
So I'm off of mute, so I'll handle that one. Though if Petros wants to include any kind of colorful commentary on top of it, feel free. the migration path from 0.11 to 0.12, you know, there were some pain points, there were some headaches, but the migration from 0.12 to 0.13 is kind of all about establishing some of these, some more stability to it. So, you know, if you had headaches with the 0.11 to 0.12 transition, you should not have that at all. Going from 0.12 to 0.13, it should be a much easier process. But like I just mentioned, there is the upgrade guide draft that's out there on GitHub. So check that out to, you know, kind of see what we've experienced so far and see what kind of feedback we've had so far with that. Petros,
Okay.
anything you want to add on top of that?
No, that was great, Kyle.
Awesome.
So Kyle, there's a question for you. And you mentioned Roger's blog, his blog post. Can you go ahead and share that in the chat? A few people asked about that.
So I went ahead and shared that in the Q&A box. So there should be a link there.
Great. Okay, so another question, does Terraform 0.13 allow you to destroy only 1 to 2 resources created using count variable, which is used in creating multiple resources?
Ooh, that's a good question.
And that's for Petros.
Yeah, that's a question that I believe I would need to defer to someone else. So we'll save that for later.
Fair enough. Sorry about that. So another question, which major cloud providers are ready for 0.13?
That's a great question. So 0.13 will support any provider that 0.12 supports. I think where the advantage of 0.13 begins to become apparent is when you want to consume community and verified partner providers from the Terraform registry, wherein Terraform can then download and initialize those automatically. So, well, as Kyle mentioned in the first question, you're going to need to use the 0.13 upgrade tool to get some of your configuration using the required provider syntax. You shouldn't see any issues. And I think that becomes doubly true if you're using official providers. So if you're mostly using AWS, Azure, Google, Oracle, providers like that, there's very little for you to do with your configuration. And although we recommend strongly that you use and sort of get used to and begin using the required provider syntax, you can still just target the official providers in the way you did before. Like always, we don't advise that you continue with the status quo if you have an option to upgrade and begin using the syntax, but nothing's stopping you from just writing provider AWS and going along your merry way.
Cool. Another question, is module count compatible with older modules?
Kyle, do you want me to take this one? Kyle and I had some fun with this one this week.
Yeah, we had all kinds of fun, but this is all you, Petros. You're the one that helped me out with it.
Yeah, so there are some caveats with us bringing module expansion, so count for each and depends onto modules. And that is that we have for a while recommended that you not instantiate providers directly in modules. It's in the Terraform documentation. And that's true if you want to use these features. So if you have modules where you're instantiating the provider in the module, you need to move it out of there into the root module or the module that's calling the module if we must, but that's the only issue at this point. There will be some more information in our upgrade guide, and like as we get closer to 0.13's GA release, we'll be moving some of that information to our website. Right now it's all available through GitHub. So yeah, come join us on Discuss to ask more questions and play around with 0.13.
Cool. Does the Terraform Cloud integration also work with self-hosted Terraform Enterprise?
It absolutely does. So while a Terraform user or practitioner on the command line would type Terraform Login, and that would connect you with Terraform Cloud, you can identify the endpoint of your Terraform Enterprise installation. And you can just have a look at the documentation and it'll indicate exactly how to do that.
Okay. Will Terraform Enterprise also be updated to 0.13 on August 10th?
Another great question. So Terraform Cloud will have 0.13 available on launch. Terraform Enterprise tends to roll out on a monthly-ish schedule. And so if you use those as your point of update, so if your organization uses the Terraform Enterprise that is released on a roughly monthly cadence, you will get 0.13 on your next update. However, if you're excited to use some of these features and you think they would be valuable immediately for you and your organization, you can reach out to your account manager or support, and they will help you get Terraform 0.13 in your enterprise install as soon as you want it.
Cool. Will Terraform Enterprise, excuse me, oh, we just asked that. What about error cycles on destroy and on create? Is there any improvement to fix this kind of error? When you have a lot of dependencies between modules, it used to have problems.
Yeah, so this may not be exactly the answer you want, but the Terraform team is very carefully and mindfully working through a lot of the destroy time issues. We had hoped to kill a few more than we did with 0.13. They are very much top of mind for some of the largest collection of issues that we're trying to remedy. They're not easy. And so in an effort to at least make sure that Terraform continues to work for the bulk of our users the way they expect it to do, we're making progress there, but it is a little slower than I think even we would like. We often see a lot of issues that we think are fixed and then new ones show up. So yeah, not the answer you were hoping for, but we're going to make it.
Okay, this one may require some thought. It's a good question. What's the best way to use these features in a brownfield environment? Any hints or docs for required state manipulation?
That's another great question. And I guess, unfortunately, I would need to ask one back. So when we say these features, so let's say, does that mean required providers, or are we talking about variable validation? Variable validation will only be available going forward. So you're going to have to do some, you're going to have to, revisit your configuration and make some updates. Providers, if you're using official ones, you don't need to do anything there. And then for module count and for each, yeah, I don't have a great answer for this, depending on what feature it is, I think. And perhaps that's a kind of discussion we could have on Discuss or Twitter, and I can involve some people there.
Yeah, I think that one's kind of a tough area because it really depends, because there's going to be some testing, there's going to be some processes to work through in order to make sure that your configuration as they're written work properly with 0.13, and then you want to start getting into some of those new features and how they work, because you're going to want to make sure that you're not finding any surprises. So there are some things, like some of the learn guides are going to kind of walk you through that, but it's unfortunately it depends.
Okay, will module count allow count equals 0 as resource count does? We use this to define optional resources within our modules. Count equals 0.
I'm going to have to get back to you on that one.
Okay.
I didn't think that worked. But yeah.
TBD.
I'll let Petros.
Answer is yes, actually. The answer is yes.
Ooh.
Okay. Can you still nest for loops inside of the for each for modules? Did that make sense?
Can you nest for each loops inside? Sorry, say that again.
Can you still nest for loops inside of inside the for each for modules. Sounds like comparing the functionality available to resources for modules.
We have an answer from the crowd, from Victor Tubinsky. The answer is yes.
Where can you? Great.
Yeah, I'm assuming if you mean like inside of the other modules, and yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah, so for each for modules, this is a really good point. So it actually is a great question. Is the same for modules as it is for resources.
Great. Okay, so as the maintainer for a Terraform provider, what should I need to watch out for in regards to change on the provider development side to make sure my provider is compatible with 0.13?
I think the answer there is that if you are using the Terraform SDK, you can mostly continue what you're doing, as that is the best sort of bridge to Terraform. And as far as I know, there is absolutely nothing you need to do to make it compatible. There are probably some changes worth paying attention to as we modify the SDK, but nothing you need to do right now.
Okay. Some of these
I do want to
have
add
been
one last
answered.
thing, Michelle. Actually, sorry to cut
Go
you
ahead.
off. If you're a community provider, and thanks, Martin, for reminding me about this, you might want to look into publishing your provider in the registry. So if that's something, the group here, and there are 566 people on the call, if you're a community provider developer and you haven't synced up with getting your provider in the registry, now is a great time, because if there was one thing that was compatible with 0.13, it is that you can get that provider into the hands of users much more easily.
Okay. Is the modules depend on sequence observed when Terraform destroy? When using Terraform destroy?
It should be, yeah.
Okay, great. Are there any new CLI options to control the console output?
There are not, though it does bring to mind that there is one other new CLI command, which is Terraform state replace providers. I don't know if I got that exactly right. I should know it off the top of my head. But if in refactoring code, so let's say you are a user and you have upgraded from 0.12 to 0.13, and the provider you use hasn't moved in the registry at the time you make the upgrade, and you need to move a provider manually, there is a new command to allow you to do that. And so it will replace a given provider configuration in your state file. So yeah.
Okay, a couple more. Will you be able to use a variable value as a condition to another variable?
That's a good question. Right now, the scope, there are probably some workarounds, but the scope of variable validation is limited to the variable where the validation is occurring. Variable validation as an experiment has been incredibly successful for us, in that the community has responded full force with how much they love it and how much more they want to see as part of that feature set. So I would pay attention to this space. Again, I'm skirting the question a little bit in case you didn't notice, but pay attention to this space. There are lots of exciting enhancements to come.
Okay, just a couple more. Kyle, if you didn't share this, can you please share the GitHub repo link of code used in the demo? Is that possible?
Yes, yeah. So all the code will be available on my GitHub repository. It's basically, github.com/ and my Twitter handle, KMRUDDY. All of the demo code starts with 0.13 - whatever the demonstration was. They're currently private. I'll mark them public as soon as we're done here.
Great. So I'm going to kick this back to our other folks in marketing. Somebody asked if this recording is going to be available. So I'd like to kick that question to them. And with that, I'll sign off.
Hi, so yes, the recording will be made available. We will just take a day or two to go through the processing, and then I will be sending that email out to all of the participants. Also, just to let you all know, if you haven't answered the poll as yet that we sent, greatly appreciated. If you can just take a minute to answer that. And I believe too, as Michelle said earlier, you can always engage with Kyle and Petrus on social media and online. They're happy to answer questions to the general public. So with that, we will be closing out our webinar today on improved workflows with Terraform 0.15. Thank you to everyone who submitted questions and to all of our panelists for joining us today. I hope everyone enjoyed today's session. And for more webinars, you can visit our website at hashicorp.com/events. Finally, as we mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, oh, sorry, I covered this already. That's my bad. Thank you all and have a great day, everyone.